can be more complex than developing flight mission to the moon and Mars. Our next speaker, she grew up in Muar, a small coastal fishing village in Johor, Malaysia. Her parents were teachers. They encouraged her to be more successful than they were, so she thought she wanted to be a professor as a child. Later, having watched many reruns of Star Trek, she decided to become an aerospace engineer instead. At 18, upon graduating from MRSM Kuantan, she left for the US to pursue her degree in computer engineering, her master's and doctorate in electrical engineering at Johns Hopkins University. Upon graduation, Florence joined NASA. She is now the Deputy Chief Technologist at NASA's Science Mission Directorate. It's my great pleasure to have Florence here with us. Please welcome Florence to the stage.
Selamat petang. Thank you so much to Khazanah for your kind invitation, and I really appreciate the fabulous hosts that you are and this wonderful venue. I wanted to thank also Marco for setting me up for this talk, because I need to rebut his going to the moon part, useless. So thank you. And I wrote this thing before he actually did it. Anyhow, so I'd just like to start with the wonder of the universe. And Galileo peered into his telescope and saw the moons of Jupiter. By the way, this is the first time that it was used in science, a telescope in astronomy. And in 1610, I think, he saw the Galilean moons. And it's ushered a new age in astronomy where the idea of everything in existence did not indeed move around the Earth. So at NASA, we continue with this sphere of exploration, and there's, hey Marco, that we explore the secrets of the universe for the benefit of all. And within the Science Mission Directorate, our vision is to lead a globally interconnected program of scientific discovery that encourages innovation and positively impacts people's lives, and is a source of inspiration. We strive to address these age-old questions of protecting and improving life on Earth and in space, search for life elsewhere, and discover the secrets of the universe. And we rely on our science community via these decadal surveys, these surveys that are done every 10 years to identify and prioritize leading scientific questions and the observations to answer them. So I wanted to share with you the spaceflight process to illustrate the conditions for innovation. Flying robotic missions is hard, and innovation is littered with failures. So this chart here shows the record of successes and failures of our missions to Mars. The orange bars at the 12 o'clock to about 10 o'clock shows all our failures in the beginning. Our initial missions to Mars had a success rate of less than 50%, and only very recently our land missions has nudged above 50%. So this business is one of spectacular success and embarrassing failures. And flying to space is never a matter of routine. You may have heard of the Mars Climate Orbiter, which is on my right, your left. And this is a mission that messed up bigly, so to speak. They were doing planned orbit insertions, and instead of SI units, for the thrust, we gave the information in newtons, and they executed we gave the information in SI units, and the thrust was executed in newtons, in English units. And what happened was the force exerted by the thrusters was off by a factor of 4.45, and guess what? The signal went away early, and we lost the spacecraft. Another mission that I personally worked on is the Nozomi mission on your right, and that is a mission that the Japanese flew to Mars. And early on in my career, this was like I was working on the Cassini mission and on this mission, and this was the first mission failure that happened to me. And on the way to Mars, the thrusters was stuck open. They lost a bunch of fuel. We tried to recover with the remaining fuel, tried to go through a long orbit maneuver plan, and during the 4-year plan to get to Mars, again, something happened to the power supply, and it failed. So Mars is pretty hard. So I learned pretty early that not too easy. But we have some early successes. The Mars Pathfinder successfully landed a 25-kilogram Sojourner rover using airbags. Very innovative. And we of course, we engineers have a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we repurpose and reuse these airbags for the larger Mars exploration rovers in 2024. It's the Spirit and Opportunity rovers, and these were 175-kilogram rovers. And again, we use airbags. But when it came to the Curiosity rover, again, I worked on that mission, those airbags were too fragile for a big 900-kilogram rover, and we had to replan. So the reason that this is hard is because Mars has a really thin atmosphere, and our payloads enter Mars orbit insertion at 13,000 miles per hour in just 7 minutes, because it's just such a thin atmosphere, and it has to come down. So we have to deal with the Mars atmosphere, and can't just glide in like airplanes, because it's just too thin to hold that. So our engineers spent 6 years working and reworking and trying to figure out what was the best way to land on Mars. So it took many iterations, and the approach to innovation isn't direct. We had failures along the way, and we had to reconsider and readopt things. So the first ones of the readoption was this winning Mars pallet landing, and again, that wasn't, that was discarded. And then we actually had this nice EDL, we call Entry and Descent Landing Stage, that was invented and discarded because we couldn't figure out, how to deal with this swinging pendulum of a spacecraft, because it's too crazy. Anyhow, we needed the time to work the technical questions and convince the skeptics. But we drew some inspiration from what's already on Earth, the heavy lift sky crane helicopters, and guess what? It turned out that it was more stable because these things are on the pendulum, and we could actually fire thrusters to stabilize the spacecraft and convince our funders to pay for this. But there were thousands of problems to solve, and we tried to solve them one by one. And eventually, we did solve them, and you can see that these parachutes eventually deployed. And again, these parachutes were huge because of the size of the rover, and much, much larger than what we had in the past. One of the toughest problems we had to deal with was what we call the thermal protective system, TPS. And in the past, we used a cork and silica based TPS system, and we used it since the 70s. But guess what? This rover, this Curiosity rover, had a 4.5-meter heat shield that was 40% larger than any other Mars heat shield. So the Mars heat shield also must fly at a 20-degree trim angle of attack to to help guide to the landing target. So the amount of wind shear that this system experienced was far greater than any other mission before. So we tried to test this in an arc jet test, and that revealed that the material would not remain in place and would pop off the honeycomb cells that held it. So we had to abandon the TPS material and use another material called the phenolic impregnated ceramic ablator, or PICA. And PICA was used in the Stardust return mission to the Earth capsule return mission. So we had to invent a couple of things before using it. That is a new tiling system and a gap filling system. So, even though you find the technology, you still had to figure out other things. And this whole process is just long and drawn out and quite difficult. another issue is when we solve one problem, another issue would pop up. So originally we were planning to use titanium gears and dry lubrication for our actuators without heating it at -120. Mars is pretty cold. And we normally on Earth, most things work at -55 at the least. So our actuators and our titanium gears failed. These titanium gears failed live testing, and so we had to fall back on heating these actuators to about -55. Well, guess what? This change caused sweeping repercussions on the whole rover design, because we needed heaters to heat the rovers, and to heat the actuators, and the heaters have to be really large. And by the time the actuators were warm enough, we had unacceptably drained the battery. So we had to double the size of the internal lithium-ion batteries. We had to modify the electronics so that we would turn off safely during the day to save precious energy. So these are the issues that come with innovation. You think it's all really nice, everybody lands nicely on Mars, but it's not the case. This is other issues. Now, this is the SAM instrument. I was the electrical lead for this instrument. And the reason I showed this instrument is because one of the toughest problems that came with the rover sampling device is this soil delivery system. We had to figure out how to stop the soils from clumping. And the soil is delivered into these inlet tubes. So we had to deal with it because we found out from the Phoenix mission in 2007 that the soil was clumping. And on Earth, you had a way the humidity bled off the excess charge. And on Mars, we had electrostatic systems, electrostatic phenomena that kind of clumps up our soil. So we struggled with inventing mechanisms that would prevent the soil from clogging. So we had shakers, thwackers, doors, scoops, pokers, all kinds of matter of the toolkit to get the soil to go down. And by the way, one funny story is that I worked on the Curiosity rover's this shaker, and you could hear the sound. And actually, my husband is the software lead. Anyhow, personal information. He noticed that the sound that the piezoelectric shaker made was 0 to 500 hertz, and he thought 440 hertz was the musical note A. So we played music with this thing in the lab. And then on the first birthday of Curiosity, we actually sent Happy Birthday to Mars. And you can see it when you Google Happy Birthday Curiosity. I'm narrating the little video. So the sky crane enabled us to land very precisely on our landing ellipse. And the Curiosity rover is able to land next to a 5-kilometer mountain, Mount Sharp. And now we're roving happily up the mountain. So, lessons learned. The innovation process is long and drawn out, and sometimes we have these aha moments. And for innovation to occur, we needed to provide time and resources for our teams to look at issues, and the time to needed to explore and run down all these operational scenarios and follow our questions, our hunches, consider the environment, and then solve the problems one by one. The teams must be free to bat around ideas, and the technologies also must be matured to enable the solution. And we have to consider the ConOps, the concept of operations, in each case. So at the end of the day, I believe people propel the innovation. To increase science return and innovation, recently at NASA, we enacted policies to foster an environment for innovation. We continue by doing initiatives like the open science policy or double-blind reviews. So the measure of our success, the way to measure the success is to look at what we've done through these missions with creative partnerships that go beyond the traditional ways of developing and executing missions. We challenge assumptions of what is technically feasible and enable revolutionary scientific discovery through a deliberate focus on innovation, experimentation, and cross-discipline research. And we also create a more collaborative culture within our Science Mission Directorate across the science community, encouraging diversity of thought, sharing best practices, and informed risk-taking through improved operations. And we are, with this open science community for the next decade, the goal is to share software, data, knowledge as early as possible during the scientific process, and to make public the scientific research that we make, that we have. We want to be transparent, inclusive, accessible, and that our data should be reproducible so that we can increase the pace and the quality of scientific progress. We are served better by connecting ideas and increasing collaboration to shape the innovative process. And these connections are powerful so that we can grow world-class science to tackle the challenges of the world for the betterment of humanity. Thank you.